All right, let's untangle this whole textile machinery technician thing. You ready to dive in? We've got a really thorough guide and even tapped into RoleCatcher, which, if you're job hunting, could be a game changer.
More to it than just mending clothes, that's for sure.
Okay, now you've got me intrigued. What exactly does a textile machinery technician do all day? I'm picturing a huge factory floor, lots of noise. Are we in the ballpark?
Getting warmer, definitely a factory setting, and yeah, it can be pretty intense. Picture those massive looms, knitting machines, vats of dye, it's a whole world.
Wow, way more high-tech than I would have guessed.
Exactly. The guide really emphasizes that combo of hands-on mechanical stuff, but also serious computer skills. Today's textile machinery, that's some next-level tech. We're talking robotic arms, programmable looms. It's like this whole synchronized system to make the fabrics we see every day.
Makes sense. So they're the ones making sure it all runs smoothly.
You got it. Troubleshooting maintenance, keeping everything humming. And
Hmm.
it's not just fixing stuff when it breaks, it's preventing problems, making sure everything's efficient.
The guide mentioned weaving, dyeing, finishing. So not just one type of machine, it's a whole bunch of specialized equipment.
Absolutely. You could even become a specialist in one particular type of machine, like a warp knitting pro or something. And for those who really want to geek out, the guide gets into the nitty-gritty of each process.
That's really cool. So there's room to really focus on something specific as you get more experience.
You got it. And speaking of finding your path, the guide lays out a whole career trajectory. You could start entry level and work your way up to managing a whole team. They even mention going into related fields like production engineering. There's definitely room to grow.
This is sounding less like fixing sewing machines and more like conducting a high-tech textile orchestra. From what I'm hearing, it's got to be demanding, but also a lot of variety potential to move up.
You're getting it. It's not a boring job, that's for sure.
But with all this talk about giant machines factory work, there's got to be a downside, right? The guide mentioned something about good job security. Is that a clue?
Well, you know what they say, no pain, no gain. The guide does describe an environment that can be loud and maybe some hazards. Earplugs, safety goggles probably come with the territory. But you're right, that often means good job security.
So a bit of a trade-off. Potential risks,
Yeah,
but a career that's likely to stick around. Definitely something to weigh out.
exactly. Pros and cons, all part of figuring out if a career is right for you.
Okay, so we've set the stage. High-tech, maybe a little loud, but with the potential to specialize and move up. And it seems like there's a lot of growth in this field. But the job market's always changing. How does that all play into a career as a textile machinery technician?
Yeah.
That's where things get really interesting.
Fasten your seatbelts because this industry, it's not just standing still. Like fashion itself, always changing. You got to keep up.
True for a lot of industries these days. What does that look like specifically for someone thinking about a textile machinery technician career? Where is the evolution happening?
Adapt or get left behind. That's the name of the game. And this is where it gets really cool. The guide talks about how automation and robotics, they're like revolutionizing the whole textile scene. We're talking 3D knitting machines can make a whole garment in one go. Digital printing systems with crazy realistic patterns.
That's wild to think about.
Yeah,
But those machines don't run themselves, right?
you got it. And that's where those skilled technicians come in. The demand is shifting less about fixing a mechanical problem, more about troubleshooting, software programming, robotic arms, maintaining those really cutting-edge systems.
So you're almost like on the leading edge of two industries at once, textiles and technology.
Exactly. You hit it right on the head. Lifelong learning, that's not optional in this field. You got to be into tech, always ready to learn new software, new materials, adapt to whatever's next.
That actually sounds like a good thing to me. I like the idea of a job where you're always learning, growing. But let's be real, all this fancy tech probably means fewer jobs overall, right?
Okay.
I remember the guide mentioned something about limited job opportunities in some areas.
You're sharp. That's definitely something the guide brings up. Some regions might have more automation, which could mean fewer of those traditional textile jobs. But hold on. It's not all doom and gloom. Remember those specialized skills we talked about?
Like becoming a jacquard loom whisperer.
Exactly. Those special skills, they're like gold in this changing landscape. And this is where RoleCatcher comes in, like your new best friend.
Okay, tell me more. How does RoleCatcher actually help with this?
Picture this. You're into those 3D knitting machines we were talking about. RoleCatcher scours the internet, like every corner company, websites, job boards, even those random places you wouldn't think to look.
So you're not spending hours on different websites, it's all in one place.
Right. And it gets even better. They take all those job postings and use some really interesting data analysis to show you a heat map of where those specialized skills are most in demand.
So if you're willing to move, RoleCatcher could help you zero in on the areas where those 3D knitting machine skills are really wanted. That's smart job hunting.
Exactly. And speaking of smart, let's talk about standing out from the crowd and landing one of those awesome jobs.
Okay, so let's say someone's listening and they're totally sold. They're ready to ditch the desk job and become a textile machinery technician.
Yeah.
What's the plan? What kind of education are we talking about?
Good news is you don't need a PhD for this one, but you do need a solid foundation. The guide mentions a high school diploma or equivalent as the starting point. But, and this is key, hands-on experience, that's where it's at.
Yeah, that makes sense. You can read all about fixing a car, but until you get under the hood, it's just theory, right?
Exactly. It's one thing to read about calibrating a loom, it's another to actually do it. And that's where the guide really emphasizes apprenticeships. They're invaluable for getting real-world experience.
Apprenticeships, got it.
Yeah.
So let's say you've done your time, you've gotten your hands dirty, you understand these machines inside and out. Now you're ready to find that perfect job. RoleCatcher helped you narrow down the location. But what about the resume? Does that still matter?
Ugh, the resume. Even in the age of robots and digital everything, you still gotta have a killer resume. And get this, RoleCatcher doesn't just show you the jobs. It goes a step further with some seriously cool AI.
Wait, AI resume writing. Now we're talking. Is this thing going to write me a cover letter in the form of a haiku?
Maybe not a haiku, but it's pretty impressive. It looks at your skills, your experience, then tailors your resume to match what those hiring managers are looking for. It's like having your own personal resume expert, but without the hefty price tag.
That's amazing. So RoleCatcher really takes you from searching to applying. That's helpful. But even with the perfect resume, you've still got to nail the interview. The guide did have a whole section on interview questions, right? Any curveballs we should warn people about?
Less about turf balls, more about showing you can think on your feet. This job is all about troubleshooting, solving problems. One question that stood out was, can you describe a time you had to troubleshoot a complex issue? They're not just looking for the answer, they want to see how you approach a challenge.
That's a classic interview question.
Yeah.
Makes you think back to real examples.
Exactly. And another one that caught my eye was, how do you stay up to date on the latest in textile technology? Goes back to what we were saying before, lifelong learning is key. Show them you're curious, you're engaged.
So come prepared to talk about your favorite industry blogs, those late-night Wikipedia deep dives.
Exactly. Show them you're passionate about this world, and they'll be ready to welcome you to the team.
This has been fascinating. We've gone from giant factories to AI resume writers in just a few minutes. It's clear being a textile machinery technician is way more than it seems. What's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from all of this?
You know, we started talking about a symphony of machines, but what really sticks with me is the people, the skilled technicians, the problem solvers, the ones who keep learning. They're the heart of this industry. It's a career that needs both technical know-how and a real passion for the craft.
Perfectly said. And for our listeners out there, here's something to think about. We've talked about the machines, the skills, but what about the end result? Those fabrics we wear every day. Take a moment to appreciate the history, the innovation, the creativity woven into every thread. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.